Hi friends, I hope you're well this week. So with the hype on the Chanel price increases going on come July, I wanted to talk about some thoughts I had, especially when it comes to the two houses between Chanel and Hermes and how they are notoriously compared. First, I feel like we shouldn't even be so shocked anymore at this point. It's happening to so many different brands. And, a lot has changed in the world that for retail to not rethink their game plan, that's just unrealistic. Not only have consumerism changed as a whole, that we as consumers, we have so many options to choose from now that we will carefully consider where we will make our next purchases, especially on the larger purchases. So in terms of that kind of spending, I can't really see why retail fashion houses, any big luxury brands, wouldn't reconsider positioning their products and their price points. Second, with inflation, which is happening as we speak, basically, it's again impossible to expect that these pieces will not grow in value either. And to be quite honest, from a value perspective, I'd say we should be in more fear if these coveted brands suddenly devalued when you think about it some more. Imagine your Chanel classic flat that you may have purchased a couple of years back that cost in the ballpark of $4,000 to $5,000 suddenly devalued to only $1,000. That wouldn't feel very good to me, I know. So I would almost say that yes, these price increases are happening to all of these brands. I do not think that people will stop buying them altogether. I don't think things work like that. I do think that it takes time for people to emotionally catch up to the inflation of things. And this is all happening quite fast, as as it always does. It basically, one day they announce a price increase and then suddenly it's already in effect, right? So for our brains and our emotional standing to catch up with all of that, it just takes time. When this actually happens, obviously we're in shock and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it went up $1,000. But once everything else in the world balances out, then it starts making sense. And when I say balance out, I also mean like everything else becomes inflated. I believe that inflation happens for everything, and once everything else level sets to a certain degree, then this increased amount doesn't even seem that significant anymore. Or rather, maybe I shouldn't put it in those words, but it wouldn't be such a sticker shock anymore. There are some or a lot of societies that do not want to discuss money and numbers, but to me, it's not an issue. Essentially everything can be discussed with respect. Understanding the value of what is being bought can be an important factor, actually. So this all depends on how each of us functions and the backgrounds we're from. Basically, I don't have an issue discussing purchases and how much an item costs and how much value it holds. And now, do I think that people will get so turned off by the Chanel price increases that they're gonna compare it to other brands? Of course, sure, why not, right? And the first thing they do is kind of take it up a notch, right? And they think about, well, if I'm spending this amount, then I might as well just go to Hermes, because that, in many people's minds, is a step up from Chanel. And I feel like that's a natural way to be, because you're feeling like, well, I'm spending this much amount when that's really the foot in the door for Hermes. So why not invest in those pieces instead? That said, I don't believe that this also means people don't come back to Chanel. And I'm sure many of you, and myself included, have said, look, after this increase, I'm no longer gonna buy another Chanel piece. But what happens, a couple of purchases happened. That's essentially is the roller coaster emotions that go on when we hear about this increase and that sticker shock in the beginning. But then over time, we get used to it and we're like, it's okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get it anyway. And part of that is going back to what I mentioned before, that these items still grow in value over time. So we essentially will feel comfortable in going back to making that purchase, even though we were fighting that price increase, that last price increase and whatnot. And that's really, the nature of the beast, right? Of course, we don't want higher prices. These are already really high priced items. But at the same time, these overall grow in value. So whatever we do end up getting, though expensive today, a couple of years later, we already know that it's going to be more, it's going to be valued more. So we essentially go back. We go back into the habitat of, coveting a lot of these items that we just purely love. And now, will people, other than between, Chanel and Hermes, will they visit other brands because of these increases? Sure, of course. There's a lot of people that feel like, well, this is, it's going to that max cap that I'm willing to spend on a handbag or on a specific item, shoes, whatnot, jewelry, whatever it is. And they'll find another brand that they equally love, with pieces that they equally love, and also within that value that they see is worth their exchange, right? Their monetary exchange for an item that they love. So I think that's fine too. Like, if suddenly this all doesn't make any sense anymore, I mean, this is like a lot of money involved, right? No matter how we spin it, it's a lot of money involved. No matter how wealthy you may be, it's still a lot of money spent. So if someone one day decides to not do this with their money anymore and decide to invest it or spend it elsewhere, that's okay too. That's perfectly fine. And I honestly don't think either or is an issue as long as you make it work. And essentially, at the end of the day, I do think that these are top luxury houses for a reason. They make really fantastic products that people really love and they get attached to. And so even though there's this one factor of a price increase that might happen occasionally, we will still find a way back to them if we really felt that balance was still kind of there, if that makes any sense. If we feel like, okay, so, instead of 4,000, now it's 5,000, instead of 5,000, this is 6,000. If it still makes sense for us to spend this amount of money to gain the happiness that we're getting from getting this item, we will still do it. We will still come back to that idea. And so I do think that at the end of the day, it is about balancing that inflation emotionally. And once we get to the point where we're feeling comfortable again with the price point of a specific line or specific product or specific brand, we will go back. I can't remember how many times I've said in the past that I will never get a Birkin or get a Kelly because of the price point of everything. It's a different kind of love, and if you understand it and if you love it, then it is what it is, and it is money well spent as long as you absolutely love these pieces and you've already kind of went through the whole thought pattern of that balance between what you're giving up on with what you're getting. And so a couple of pieces that I do have here, like this Chanel classic flap in the small size, I had picked this up a couple of years back when I was studying in London. And this is the caviar leather in black and gold hardware. I do not regret one day of getting this, even though at the time I felt it was kind of expensive, especially when I was in London, not for leisure, and I was really there to study. I wasn't expecting to add this to my collection so soon at the time, but it as soon as I saw the bag, as soon as I tried it on, I really couldn't leave the store without it. It was a couple of weeks before my return trip home, and so I thought about, well, the VAT tax refund would make it a little bit more worthwhile. So at the time I spent, after the tax VAT deduction, I spent about $4,000 on this. And on July 1st, if the Chanel increase happens, this bag will actually be close to $7,000. Another piece that I really went after is this Gabrielle backpack. And I got this in the large size just because of the proportions of it. I normally go for smaller bags just because of my size and frame, but somehow this bag worked better for me just because it looked a little flatter against my body versus the smaller size where it felt like almost like a rounded shape. And you know, I don't think I could have went wrong with either or, but this happened and this was something available at the time, and I was on the hunt for a couple of months for this, probably more than 4 or 5 months just to look for this. And I was adamant on wanting the two-tone color, even though the full black one is more of the one that people really, you know, seek after. I really wanted a two-tone bag. It's the only two-tone bag that I own. And so I wanted either this version, the navy and the black, or the beige Claire one with the black. But I'm happy with this one just because of kind of the rubbing that happens once it's against my body. I don't have to worry about the color transfer for this navy version. So, and I use this really, really often because it's such an easy bag to just sling on my body and, you know, just kind of throw things in my bag. It opens super easily, so I can just kind of pull it open like that, throw everything in, and then once I kind of get up out of my seat, I just throw these straps over my shoulder and it cinches and closes the bag immediately. So I really love how the ease of this bag and how casual it is. And out of all of the newer kind of permanent Chanel lines, I do love the Gabrielle line. And at the time, if I were to purchase this or the smaller size on the resale market, I would have had to pay an upwards of $700 to $800 to secure this bag in a used form. So I was so happy that my friend helped me out with her SA from Bergdorf's, and I was able to get this piece new from retail. And now shortly after I got the backpack, I also had found this denim reissue, and I always knew that I wanted to add a Chanel denim piece to my collection. And whether it be, you know, the Chanel classic flap look with the CC turn lock that's in full denim, or this reissue. And being that I've always wanted a reissue flap, I'm glad this worked out. It wasn't exactly the combination that I thought I was going to get for my first reissue. I always thought that I was going to get a leather one, but this worked out perfectly, and I really don't have a need to, you know, find another reissue in a leather. And so it all worked out very well. And now this bag I purchased in the pre-loved market and spent $3,500 on it. And now these denim Chanel bags, they're really sought after because they're just so limited. Once Chanel comes out with a couple of these denims, they fly off shelves and it's so hard to secure one. So back in 2013, which is the year this bag was made, I really wanted this bag, and I wasn't in a place where I, you know, could make such a large purchase. And so I waited and hesitated, and I never got around to it, and obviously it all sold out. And now these denims, especially the classic flap, these are valued at such a high price. This reissue, it can be upwards of $7,000 to $8,000 or more. And for something like the classic flap denim with the CC turn lock, that's definitely well over $10,000 if even found. It's so hard to find. I am definitely happy with all 3 of my Chanel pieces that I own. So far, I've let 2 of my Chanel pieces go. One was maybe a couple of years ago when I got this classic flap. The seasonal flap that I had just didn't I just didn't need it anymore, so I let that one go. And also another Chanel piece that I let go a couple of months ago. I will make another video to go over some of the pieces that I have sold and the reasons why I let those pieces go. Now with the 3 absolutely loved Chanel pieces that I already own, I don't necessarily feel comfortable with the current prices for Chanel now, let alone another price increase. But at the same time, I can't say that I will never buy another Chanel piece. I don't know. I still have such an open heart for them, and I really love their classic pieces. In all honesty, I'm not somebody that purchases a lot of Chanel seasonal items. So I have found that, Hermes, many of the different types of Hermes bags suits my taste and my style a little bit more. So I tend to have more range when it comes to Hermes versus Chanel. I tend to stick to the more classic flaps. I feel like I can't go wrong with Chanel flaps. Like no matter how I'm dressed, it tends to always do something to my outfit. Even I could be in sweats and a Chanel flap can still work with it for some reason. Not that the Birkin or the Kelly wouldn't. I mean, those equally can work, but that's how I feel about Chanel. That there might not be many pieces that work for me, but the classic flaps and the reissue definitely does. And I don't want to leave out this backpack here, and I've got it, I bought it for a reason. I went on a serious hunt for it. If anything, I feel like I've hunted for this backpack more than the classic flaps here. And the reason behind it is because of just the slouchy, kind of nonchalant look of it. I absolutely love, because it's still kind of jammed up with so much of its Chanel charm and glam, with this 4-colored chain link that they have, like the classic link, and it's 4-color because it's the brushed silver and then the brushed gold, and then on the bottom part somewhere here it merges from the brushed gold into the shiny gold, and same for the other side. The brushed silver goes into the shiny silver. So maybe I should bring this closer to the camera so that you can see the difference. Like that's where the difference starts, kind of, from the silver or the brushed to the silver, or the brushed to the shiny part. But now, just going completely back to the comparison between Chanel and Hermes, do I think that now with all of this price increases, sure. I mean, do I think that people be turned off enough from Chanel to run to into Hermes to try to attempt and buy their pieces? Sure, I do think so. It's not like you walk into Hermes and you're able to buy a Birkin or a Kelly. As you all know, just last week I had posted a video on my newest purchase on this Hermes Kelly from the pre-owned market, because I honestly do not feel like I was going to be able to secure one in the exact color combination and leather and size and all of that. So I just went ahead and purchased this from the pre-loved market, and I did score because I got a really fantastic price on it. But going back to the price point, I mean, these bags, these classic flaps, may seemingly be upwards of $7,000-8,000. The maxi, I believe, is going to be about $9,000, and sure, that's a lot of money. That's almost 5 figures, which is essentially what Birkins and Kellys are in from retail. But is it easy to just walk in there to drop 5 figures and buy these bags? No, it isn't, and it might not be offered in the exact colors and combinations that you would like. And so for something under $9,000, I would say it's more of if you're able to secure these bags under that price in the pre-loved market. And that's totally doable, and I can totally see people doing that. I mean, I might, I would consider myself as someone that would think about that. Like, if I'm spending so much money on a Chanel classic flap, then it really has to be something I either really, really love and it's really hard to get, or otherwise I would think, well, I can also get another Kelly or another Birkin or something like that. Overall, I do not think that this comparison will make people walk away from Chanel completely. Even up to this point, yes, I do think that Chanel, it has gotten expensive, especially because I've made several purchases that were, not yet half the cost of what they cost now, but it's getting there, right? It's getting really close to there, from 4,000 to 7,000. And so, it definitely is a big jump for me, but at the same time, am I completely turned off and have I stopped liking Chanel? No, absolutely not. I love all of these other pieces, I really do, but there's just something about the Chanel classic flap that doesn't go away from me. It's still with me, and this is like between all of these bags that I completely love and I really had to, do a bit of work for. So I don't believe that people will completely run away from Chanel just because of yet another price increase, or yet another one later on this year or next year, or following. And it's just all about us being able to catch up emotionally to the idea of it, and that's again, when the rest of the world catches up on other parts, when I mean, I don't want to jinx it all, but I mean, this is what happens, right? Your grocery bill starts to grow a little bit more, your housing costs start to grow a little bit more, and down the line, the cost for these increases don't seem that significant anymore because everything else has caught up. That's really how I see it, and that's the emotional part, that like we are being introduced to this in such a new way that we just need time to unpack everything and to really think about it and then value it from a kind of a new perspective, and then go from there. So these are basically all of my thoughts on price increases and how I think about the comparison between Chanel and Hermes and other brands as well. Whether people get turned off with price increases and they run to a different brand. Sure. Do I think it's a temporary and not permanent thing? Yes. I do think that if people love Chanel, they will still go back to it. So, okay, so that's my video for today, and I hope you've enjoyed everything that I've had to discuss, and a little bit of a display on my other bags other than Hermes. I know the majority of the time I've been doing just unboxings on my Hermes items a little bit more than my Chanel items, but I will start to post more on the other brands that I do have in my collection. So yeah, so I will see you all very soon again, and I thank you for watching. Bye!